Hey you guys, this is Mr. Sal. We're going to look at some direct and indirect variations and also some percentage problems. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
So, I don't know why this is number 11 again, but whatever. Y varies directly as x. The wording in this is really weird, but that's just the way it is, right? It's gonna, as far as I remember, it was like that on the homework. So if x equals 2 and y equals 3, find y when x equals 1. All right, now generally with proportions, the y value is divided by the x value. In this case, though, they gave us 3 values, so it really doesn't matter where you put them, as long as you keep the y's in the same position as you do the other y's, and the x's in the same position as the other x's, which may sound extremely confusing, but that's okay. We can still work with it, all right? So I'm going to set up a proportion just like this. I'm going to use my y values in the numerators. So let's start with the values that they give us first. I've got an x value that's 2, so I'll put that in the denominator. Then I've got a y value that corresponds with it in its numerator. So right now I have 3 over 2, and this should equal the other fraction. We don't know the y value, so we'll just put that in as y. But we know that the x value is 1. But along those lines with your question, if I were to set this up, I'm doing this knowing that it's going to confuse some of you, so ignore this part if it does. If I set this up the other way, so I did x's divided by y's, and then the other one would be x's divided by y's, I can still solve this, okay? That's not how I'm going to do it, though. But you could set it up that way. Well, there's lots of different ways to set this to solve it from this point. I don't know. Let's try it this way. And there are other ways, which I think we've talked about actually. Let's say I wanted common denominators, because once I get common denominators, I can ignore them, right? Well, that means that this y over 1 needs to be something over 2. So I can multiply the 1 by 2 and the y by 2 as well. So that gives me a new fraction, 2y over 2, right? And then the other fraction is still the same. And these are equal. Well, now that I have common denominators, I can rewrite this as just 3 equals 2y. And then what would we do to solve it? We would divide both sides by 2. And yeah, that'd be a 1y if you want, or just y, either way. Some of you like the decimal on that, 1.5. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Any of this stuff works. The weekly pay that Melissa receives varies directly, so it is proportional, with the number of hours she works, again, which is what you would expect. If she works 21 hours, she makes $259.56. How much money would she make if she works 35 hours? All right, so we got to set this up. Let's set the proportion up just to start out. 2 fractions that are equal, and then we'll fill in the blanks. Of course, they have to give us 3 values in order to solve for the missing value. Now we get to choose. We're dealing with either dollars or hours, and it really won't matter where we put them, all right? Because we don't know, maybe some of you do, which one's the x and the y's. Y's are dependent on x's, so x's are independent, but again, not many people care about that. So let's just choose. You guys want the dollars in the numerator or denominator? All right, if we put the dollars in the numerator for one, then it has to be in the numerator for the other. If you start mixing this up, then you're gonna jack it up, all right? Which we don't want. Now we have the hours, which have to go now in the denominator for both. So let's just fill in what they told us. If she works 21 hours, so we'll put that in the first fraction. It wouldn't matter if you put in the second one. She will make $259.56. Well, the other one is how much money, so we don't know how much money. You can make it an X, a Y, whatever letter you want, just to show that it's an unknown value. If she works for 35 hours. And that's how we'll solve it, okay? Well, last problem we did, we used common denominators. Finding common denominators on this one would be a huge pain. So let's try something different. This one is called fish method. We have 4 values. Sorry, some people call it bow tie method. It really doesn't matter. In any case, it's always multiply, divide, and equals. All right. Now, if you guys hate this, don't worry. There's another one coming, all right? We always start with the x. Now, it's fish method, right? So we got to make a fish. I'm going to make the tail first, which is always a straight up and down line. This is not art class, so don't get too picky on me, all right? So I go down to 35. That's my first value. Then I would bring it back up to the next value, which in this case, and I should have given myself more space, $259.56. Some of you guys know where this is going, right? So we came up here. Now we make the fish face right here. The next value is 21. And then we end at the X where we started. So there's a nice fish. Some of you guys like to draw fish. I like to draw fish. However you like it, all right? Whatever. Maybe it flies. In any case, we've set this up, and this is something we could punch right into the calculator, which I will do now. All right, this is what I get. Now we can show that it equals X, even though that's something we just kind of made up as part of the problem. So whether you show that or not, be sure that this is not your final answer. Because if you put this on a test, you will lose a point. It's dollars. That's better. Inverse variations. Indirect variation means that one value will go up while another corresponding value goes down proportionally. We could use gas, again, in your car or whatever it is that you drive. Oh yeah, they don't make, some cars don't have gas, but whatever. For example, the longer you drive, the less gas you'll have in your car, right? Well, this is kind of going along those lines. In this problem, it sets up as y equals k over x, and it generally will always do that for us on the homework, which is kind of nice. The problem is we got to figure out what k is first. And k is the constant of indirect variation. So we just solve for k by finding a corresponding x and y value and multiplying those together. And then we'll divide it by whatever the new x value is, and that will equal its corresponding y value. By the way, that's just equation manipulation. Not that it, and we'll get into that. For example, you could divide both sides by x, and that would give you the y right there. Now, if that made that more confusing, ignore that. Now, we can expect the homework to read something like this. Y varies inversely as x. If x equals 8, then y equals 6. Find y when x is 2. And find the constant of variation. Round answers to the nearest hundredth if rounding is necessary. Okay, we can kind of assume that it will be, but perhaps not. Let's find out. All right, so the first thing we need to do is solve for the constant of indirect variation, k, which we already saw was x times y, right? Now in this problem, it tells us what x is and y, so I'm going to replace the x and y respectively with those values. X is 8 and y is 6. So I see that my k value, 8 times 6, is 48. Now we can feel good about that, but as long as we don't stop right there, all right? Because then it will make us feel really bad. Here's what we got to do is we got to solve, because it says find the y value. Find the y value, and we saw from that last slide that y is k divided by x, which again is just kind of basic equation manipulation. So let's just fill those in. So we know the k value is 48. So we'll fill that in, 48. And the x value, its corresponding x value is the new x, which is 2. So y equals 48 divided by 2, which is 24. That's it. So we can kind of compare these just to make sure we're doing it right. X before was 8, which is bigger than 2. And then x became 2. So since it's an indirect variation, we would expect the y value to increase, which it did. It went from 6 to 24. The only difference really on the test that I noticed or remember was this one word. So it's very common for me to grade a test where you guys don't see that word inversely, and so you solve it like a regular proportion. Don't do that. Okay? It's an inverse variation. All right, there is a problem like this on the homework. In the past, students have skipped it, but for various reasons, okay? The first reason that people skip this one is because it's a long problem, and you don't want to read through it, okay? Which is okay as long as you're willing to sacrifice the credit. Just be careful because it's not too bad. The nice thing about this is they gave us the two equations that we got to use on this thing. So let's go ahead and read through it. Loudness L of a sound, measured in decibels or dB, is inversely proportional to the square of the distance, d, from the source of the sound. And then it gives us the two equations that we'll need, and we'll solve always for k first. A person 11 feet from a jet ski, it is 92 decibels loud. How loud is the jet ski when the person is 53 feet away? And we will round our answer to the nearest hundredth. Okay. Now we would kind of expect this, right, just with inverse variation. The farther you are away from something that's, putting off sound, you would expect it to be weaker the farther away you go, right? So if you guys in the back can't hear me, you know what to do, right? In any case, like I said, we do have to solve for k, but it's listed a little bit different, right? It's not x times y anymore. It's loudness times the decibels, but we're going to square that. Now, for some of you that don't know, your calculator will do the square for you. On most calculators or any TIs, usually it looks something like this. In fact, most Casios, I think, have this button as well. If you can't find that button, then this one should do. This is the exponent button, and then you'd have to tell the calculator that you want an exponent of 2. Just in case you were wondering. Let's go ahead and fill in these, because it told us, let's look at that. It told us a person, I said D was decibels, I meant distance. I apologize. It told us a person 11 feet from the jet ski, so that's our distance, and we will square that. It has a loudness of 92 decibels, so we'll replace L, the loudness, with 92. And once we multiply these, we will have the K value. Just be careful, because in some of your calculators you're going to have to do this by the order of operations, which means you're going to have to do the 11 squared first. Mine, I can plug it in directly and it will give it to me. So I'm just going to plug that in, and this is a big number. Well, now that we have K, and just reading the rest of this, right? How loud is the jet ski? That's going to be the second equation that it gave us. Let's go and write that in. Well, we did figure out our K value, so let's go ahead and replace that in there. And we're going to divide this by the new distance, which it told us is 53 feet. So it's 53 squared right there. So again, just to be specific on this one, the person was 11 feet away, and it was 92 decibels. They're farther away, so we would expect a number smaller than the 92 decibels because it's an inverse variation. So let's go ahead and plug this one in. And this is what I get. I got 3 point, this says round to the nearest hundredth, so 96, I had 96298. But it only asks us to round to the hundredth. 3.96, and that's really nice. But it is a word problem, so please don't forget to label this thing. How loud was it? And that should be in decibels. The other quantity we were comparing was distance, which was in feet. Well, now that you've seen that done, hopefully you won't skip it. All right, the percent proportion, it's still a proportion, but we're not looking necessarily at x's and y's. I always set these up like this. Even though on the homework, they'll have something set up like this. It's the percent, it's usually the whole multiplied by the percent, and that would equal the part, which is, I don't know, you can decide which way you're going to do it. However, if we keep it as a proportion, the only thing that's going to change is where the missing value is. But since we've already learned 2 methods on solving these, and the third one is coming, even though we've looked at it. You can kind of decide which method you like and just set them up the same way all the time, which is why I use it like this. So they have to give us 2 of the 3 missing values. Now it's always divided by 100 because of percent. In America we spell it as one word. In other countries they spell it as 2 words, percent, cent being 100th, right? Which is why it's a percent over 100. I don't know if that helps or not. Maybe some of you guys are from a country that does that. Maybe that's helpful. I don't know. All right, round answers to 1 decimal place as needed. What is 35% of 72? Now again, if you like the equation, and on the homework I think they want you to use the equation, but I'm not going to. Let's set this up as a proportion, and it's always over 100. So I know it's the percent that goes over the 100. In this case, they did give me a percent as 35%. So I've got 35 over 100. So this other fraction was part divided by whole. We'll write that in. It's usually pretty easy to figure out, especially if it's worded like this. All right. We know which is the part and which is the whole, specifically from the word of. If you see the word of, that is the whole, the number after it, by the way. So, for example, on this one, it's of 72. So the whole value, is 72. Now that means that the part is missing, and we'll talk about the word you're looking for with part later, because I think we do want that the part is missing. If not, then we'll come back to this one. In any case, it is the part that's missing on this one. So we'll just replace that with X, just because it's a generally used letter for an unknown. And we're going to solve this one a little bit differently than we did that last one, or the last 2, that were proportions, with cross multiplication. All right. So with cross multiplication, I've got the first cross, 35 times 72. And this should equal the other cross, 100 times X. But yeah, that still equals 100X. So finally, to solve for this thing, for X, we'll divide both sides by 100. And that would give us 25.20. We don't really need to show that 0 there, though. Now you could check. You could, in your calculator, put 35 divided by 100, which is 0.35. 25.2 divided by 72 should equal the same value, 0.35, and it does. So we know then that our answer is correct. Bam. Again, we'll round it to 1 decimal place. 16.1 is what percent of 70? So we'll set this up again with the percent proportion, because we are looking at percents. And again, the nice thing is that we always know that the one denominator is always out of 100. The other thing here is it's what percent. Now, it's asking for the percent, so we don't know what that is. And the percent always goes above the 100. The next part is looking for that word of. There it is. Bam. Found it. It's of 70. And the whole is in the denominator. So that means the 16.1 has to be in the numerator. Well, we run into, I guess, a fork in the road at this point. You have to determine which method you want to use to solve this problem. Which one do you guys want? Let's do it. So I'm going to cross multiply this x and 70. I'm going to write it as 70x just because that's the way that we're used to seeing it. And this should equal the other cross, 100 times 16.1. Next up, we don't want 70x's, we want one of them. So we're going to divide both sides by 70. And that gives us the 1x. Well, that was exact 23. I should write that right. 23. Now again, you could check this. 23 divided by 100 should equal the same thing as 16.1 over 70. But don't forget, though, this one did ask for the percent, so we will need to label this one as well. 23%. Oh, yeah, you don't have to circle the x either. All right, another good one. Round answers to 1 decimal place. 27.3% of what number is 64.789? That's a lot of decimal places, but whatever. So I'm going to set this up once again, percent proportion, and I've always got that denominator that's 100. In this case, they gave us the percent here at 27.3%. So I'll just write that in over the 100 because the percent is always over 100. So this brings us to which one is the part and which is the whole. Some of you notice that it says of what number, and it didn't give us that number, so we know that is the whole, which is the denominator for the other fraction. But something else that hopefully may be helpful is the word is, even though I look for the word just of. You may look for the word is. If you find the word is, the number after it is generally the part. So this would be the part, which is in the numerator, 64.789. All right, well, let's cross multiply these then. So I've got 27.3 times x should equal the other cross 100 times 64.789. So let's go ahead and multiply those. All right, this, by the way, I'm just moving the decimal place over twice, which is why the percent proportion is kind of convenient. But the next thing we need is the x value, which is the whole, and that would be the missing number there. So we're going to divide both sides by 27.3, which would give us the x. I've got 0.322, so I'm just going to write 0.3, because they only wanted one decimal place on that one. All right, here's another percent problem. We may look at these a little different, and some of you guys may choose to take those shortcuts if you choose. Your bill comes to $30, and you will leave an 18% tip. This one's asking how much you're going to pay total, so it's including the tip, which means we're going to have to figure out how much the tip is. And then we can add it to the $30, even though there is kind of a different way to look at it. But let's just keep it the way it is with the percent proportion. Now again, this one is only going to tell us the amount of the tip because it told us that we're going to leave the 18%. So this is only for the tip. Now the bill came to $30. Now that would have been all of the bill. The 18% is only part of the bill. So we know that the 30 will be the whole value in this case. And the part will be the tip as well. And we can think of this the same way if we look at the fractions.
Wait, why is 30 the whole?
So,
you're saying and you will leave with an 18% tip, so it's total.
yeah. So the total that we leave will be the final total. But the 18% is based on the $30. So right now, just for the bill that we have, the 100 could represent 100% of the bill, which is the same as the $30. The 18% will represent whatever the tip is, which we will then add to the other total. It works the same way as tax does, right? And you can see that on any receipt, as long as you pay tax. You figure out your total, then you figure out the tax, and then you figure out a grand total. Tips work the same way. Well, let's do cross multiplication then, because you guys like it so much. So I got 18 times 30 equals 100 times x. All right, then divide both sides by 100. Now again, this is only going to tell us the amount of the tip. So I got $5.40 for just the tip. But we want to know how much we're going to pay total. To start out with, we were going to pay 30 bucks. But now we're going to add the $5.40 to this total for a grand total of $35.40. 540, I don't know. I think there's some industries where that's kind of a bad tip. Be careful though, because if you go back to places you tip poorly at, it is likely they will get you. Sorry, I should circle that, right? That's our final answer. I'm going to show you guys this a different way though, all right? Now you get to choose which way you like the best, and again, that's because I don't really care how you do it, as long as you do it right, okay? All right, so on this one, I got a percent proportion again. Now, the thing is that 100 in the original percent proportion represents 100% of the bill. However, the problem with this is now we're actually paying 100%, but we're going to add on another 18% to that. So it's really out of 118%. Let me take that back. So it's always out of 100, all right? But we're going to pay 118% in this case. And that with this one, the only thing let me start that over. The reason I show this is because solving this proportion will give us the answer directly instead of having to add the value at the end. Because I've added the 18% into the 100% on this, okay? Now, right now, I don't know what 118% of the bill is, but I know what 100% of the bill is, 30 bucks. Now, if you were to solve this, I like fish method. There you go. I've got 30 times 118 divided by 100, and I get 35.40. It's the same thing, all right? Well, this is nice because the 100 always stays there. The only thing we changed, I guess, was the percent. Even the 30 stayed in the same spot, right? Tracey paid $175 for an item that was originally priced at $390. What percent of the original price did Tracey pay? All right, well, this gives us another percent proportion, which we can set up. Well, the thing about this one, it did ask what percent, so I don't know the percent, and that's always over 100. So I've got X over 100. Tracey paid 175 bucks for that, but originally it was $390, which means that 100% of the price was $390. So again, see how these correspond with each other, the 100%, this 100% stuff, and then the 390. Tracey definitely paid not full price on this thing. So we know that that is only part of the price, 175 bucks. And that's how it sets up. All we got to do is figure out the percent. So we'll cross multiply. And then 100 times 175, we'll just add 2 zeros onto that. And at this point, to solve, we'll just divide both sides by the 390. And I got 44 point, what the heck, we'll round it to one decimal place. You could round it to the whole decimal place, or whole percentage if you wanted to. And since this is a percent, we should label it as a percent. So it appears that Tracey paid 44.9% of the original price. That's pretty good. If the first chapter of a certain book is 22 pages long and makes up 2% of the book, how many pages does the entire book have? All right, percent proportion again. Here's what we know is that 2% of the book is the same as 22 pages. What we don't know is how many total pages are in the book. So we have a part of the book, which is 22 pages. We just don't know how many pages are in the whole book. Again, I don't know which terminology you prefer. In any case, though, we can cross multiply this. So I've got 2x now equals 22 times 100. So 2x equals 2200. And then we'll divide both sides by 2. And we see that x equals 1100. But this is a word problem, so please don't forget to label it 1100 pages.